Oh, what a day. What a lovely, lovely day. Yeah, I guess I'm not really cut out for that whole Mad Max thing. But, anyways, hello and welcome to what is it now? Can't remember. I believe it's now book 2, chapter 11 of You Should Be Reading. And today we're going to be talking about a book that is kind of, in a way, similar to Mad Max Fury Road. You know that big movie that's actually kind of making a bit of bank and doing a lot of interesting fun stuff. And that book is Damnation Alley by Roger Zelazny. Now, this little book, it's very slim. It's a very quick read. What it is about is basically there is a fellow by the name of Hell Tanner. That's right, H-E double double, or H-E double L, H-E-L-L, Hell Tanner. And he gets roped into running through what is called Damnation Alley. Basically, this is a kind of dystopian, sci-fi, futuristic look at the world. Apparently, there was a lot of bombs gone off, a lot of nuclear explosions, and it caused a significant change in not only the flora and fauna of the world, but the weather, to the point where there are vast, uh, vast winds, like literally channels of wind coursing through the air and moving around to the point where it will literally pick up cars and tanks and rocks, trees, animals, anything. It will pick these things up bodily, carry it into the sky all around the world, and then rain it down on places. And one of the worst sections of the world, according to this book, at least insofar as the nation of the United States, is what's called the Damnation Alley. And it's a wide swath of country, basically right down the center of it. The only places left moderately livable are on the east and west coast. And Hell Tanner is on the west coast, in San Francisco, I believe. He gets roped into running medical supplies through Damnation Alley to Boston, because there's a plague going in Boston that has already happened in San Francisco and they've cured it. They have the vaccines. Boston does not. So he gets roped in doing it because they basically let him out of prison to make this run. He tries to escape, gets captured, brought back, and forced to do it. So he's not in it for the glory or because it's the right thing to do. No, it's basically he's going there because if he succeeds, he gets a full pardon. That's why. Now, Hell Tanner is one of the last remaining, possibly the last remaining, member of the Hell's Angels. Yeah, he is a biker. He is bad, rough, tough, that type of a guy. And that's our hero. Kind of an anti-hero in a way. And as you can see, the wonderful cars that they have here, they're more like giant mobile tanks. Kind of like the, what's it called? The Tumbler, the Batmobile in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Similar to that in a way. It's big, huge tires, heavily armored, got tons of weaponry on it. It also has cameras pointing not only in front and to the back and the sides, but also directly above and directly under. So you don't have to get out of the car to see anything. There's sleeping quarters in the car, there's a refrigerator, a little oven to heat things up. Uh, it's basically a mobile fortress. And it's his job to drive that fortress with those vaccines to Boston through a hellish landscape filled with giant iguanas, um, spiders, all kinds of nasty, nasty creatures. Also, there's gangs who manage to live out there in the waste that are trying to get to him. All kinds of stuff going on. And it's a nice little book. It's not a very heavy read. Very straightforward, very quick. Only took me a couple days. Naturally, it's an older book. You're not going to find this in any Barnes and Nobles in any chapters or anything like that. You're going to have to go to a used bookstore to try and track this down. Possibly look online, some of those places. But it's well worth the read. Especially if you went and saw Mad Max and you liked it. It's kind of similar. It's got that same type of vein. There was also a movie done up about it. Apparently, I've checked a little bit into it. From what the synopsis is, it does not look to be even remotely close to this. So, really, don't worry about the movie. Check the book out. This time, the book is probably better than the movie. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about that, other than it's a really good book. It provides an interesting look at an alternate future for Earth when the world has literally gone to hell and back. So yes, I would definitely check it out. And instead of reading from the beginning, I'm going to read a little ways in for you today. So until next time, I leave you with this. They descended to the basement, the sub-basement, and the sub-sub-basement. When they got there, Tanner saw 3 cars, ready to go, and 5 men seated on benches along the wall. One of them he recognized. "Denny," he said. "Come here." He moved forward, and a slim, blond youth, who held a crash helmet in his right hand, stood and walked towards him. "What the hell are you doing?" he asked him. "I'm second driver in car 3. You got your own garage, and you've kept your nose clean. What's the thought on this?" "Denton offered me 50 grand, said Denny, and Hell turned away his face. "Screw it. It's no good if you're dead." "I need the money." "Why?" "I want to get married, and I can use it. I thought you were making out okay." "I am, but I'd like to buy a house." "Does your girl know what you've got in mind?" "No." "I didn't think so. Listen, I've got to do it. It's the only way out for me. You don't have to." "That's for me to say." "So I'm going to tell you something. You drive out to Pasadena, to that place where we used to play when we were kids, with the rocks and the 3 big trees. You know where I mean?" "Yeah, I remember." "Go back of the big tree in the middle, on the side where I carved my initials. Step off 7 steps and dig down 4 feet. Got that?" "Yeah. What's there?" "That's my legacy, Denny. You'll find one of those old strong boxes, probably all rusted out by now. Bust it open. It'll be full of Excelsior, and there'll be a 6-inch joint of pipe inside. It's threaded, and there's caps on both ends. There's a little over 5 grand rolled up inside it. And all the bills are clean." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's yours now," he said, and hit him in the jaw. When Denny fell, he kicked him in the ribs 3 times, before the cops grabbed him and dragged him away. "You fool," said Denton as they held him. "You crazy damn fool." Said Tanner. "No brother of mine is going to run Damnation Alley while I'm around to stomp him and keep him out of the game. Better find another driver quick, because he's got cracked ribs. Or else let me drive alone." "Then you'll drive alone," said Denton, "because we can't afford to wait around any longer. There's pills in the compartment to keep you awake, and you better use them, because if you fall back, they'll burn you up. Remember that. I won't forget you, mister, if I'm ever back in town. Don't fret about that. Then you better get into car number 2 and start heading up the ramp. The vehicles are all loaded. The cargo compartment is under the rear seat. Yeah, I know. And if I ever see you again, it'll be too soon. Get out of my sight, scum. Tanner spat on the floor and turned his back on the Secretary of Traffic for the nation of California. Several cops were giving first aid to his brother, and one had dashed off in search of a doctor. Denton made 2 teams of the remaining 4 drivers and assigned them to cars 1 and 3. Tanner climbed into the cab of his own, started the engine, and waited. He stared up the ramp and considered what lay ahead. He searched the compartments until he found cigarettes. He lit one and leaned back. The other drivers moved forward and mounted their own heavily shielded vehicles. The radio crackled, hummed, crackled again, and then a voice came through as you heard the other engines come to life. Car 1, ready. There was a pause, then Car 3, ready, said a different voice. Tanner lifted the microphone and mashed the button on his side. Car 2, ready. Move out, came the order, and they headed up the ramp. The door rolled upward before them, and they entered the storm. It was a nightmare getting out of L.A. and onto Route 91. The waters came down in sheets, and rocks the size of baseballs banged against the armor plating of his car. Tanner smoked and turned on the special lights. He wore infrared goggles, and the night and the storm stalked him. The radio crackled many times, and it seemed he heard a murmur of a distant voice, but he could never quite make out what it was trying to say. They followed the road as far as it went, and as their big tires sighed over the rugged terrain that began where the road ended, Tanner took the lead, and the others were content to follow. He knew the way. They didn't. He followed the old smuggler's route. He used to run candy to the Mormons. It was possible that he was the only one left alive that knew it. Possible, but then there was always someone looking for a fast buck, so in all of L.A. there might be somebody else. The lightning began to fall, not in bolts, but sheets. The car was insulated, but after a time his hair stood on end. He might have seen a giant Gila monster once, but he couldn't be sure. He kept his fingers away from the fire control board. He'd save his teeth till menaces were imminent. From the rear-view scanners, it seemed that one of the cars behind him had discharged a rocket, but he couldn't be sure since he had lost all radio contact with them immediately upon leaving the building. Waters rushed towards him, splashed about his car. The sky sounded like an artillery range. A boulder the size of a tombstone fell in front of him, and he swerved about it. Red lights flashed across the sky from north to south. In their passing, he detected many black bands going from west to east. It was not an encouraging spectacle. The storm could go on for days. He continued to move forward, skirting a pocket of radiation that had not died in the 4 years since last he'd come this way. They came upon a place where the sands fused into a glassy sea, and he slowed as he began his passage, peering ahead after the craters and chasms it contained. 3 more rockfalls assailed him before the heavens split themselves open and revealed a bright blue light edged with violet. The dark curtains rolled back toward the poles, and the roaring and the gunfire reports diminished. A lavender glow remained in the north, and a green sun dipped toward the horizon at his back. They had ridden it out, and he killed the infras, pushed back his goggles, and switched on the normal night lamps. The desert would be bad enough all by itself. Something big and bat-like swooped through the tunnel of his lights and was gone. He ignored its passage. 5 minutes later it made a second pass, this time much closer. He fired a magnesium flare. A black shape, perhaps 40 feet across, was illuminated, and he gave it 2 5-second bursts from the 50 calibers. It fell to the ground and did not return again. To the squares, this was Damnation Alley. To Hell Tanner, this was still the parking lot. He'd been this way 32 times, and so far as he was concerned, the alley started in the place that had once been called Colorado. He led and they followed, and the night wore on like an abrasive. No airplane could make it, not since the war. None could venture above a couple 100 feet, the place where the winds began. The winds. The mighty winds that circled the globe, tearing off the tops of mountains and sequoia trees, wrecked buildings, gathered up birds, bats, insects, and anything else that moved, up into the dead belt. The winds that swirled about the world, lacing the sky with dark lines of debris, occasionally meeting, merging, clashing, dropping tons of rubbish wherever they came together and formed too great a mass. Air transportation was definitely out to anywhere in the world, for those winds circled, and they never ceased. Not in all the 25 years of Tanner's memory had they let up. Tanner pushed ahead, cutting a diagonal by the green sunset. Dust continued to fall about him, great clouds of it, and the sky was violet, and then purple once more. The sun went down, and the night came on, and the stars were very faint points of light somewhere above it all. After a time the moon rose, and the half face that it showed that night was the color of a glass of Chianti wine held before a candle. He lit another cigarette and began to curse, slowly, softly, and without emotion. So that's it for this week. And this week, you should be reading Damnation Alley by Roger Zelazny. And I'll see you next week.